Hi guys, welcome back. In today's episode, we are going with a Polish theme because it's November and Poland celebrates its Independence Day on the 11th of November. So we are doing a Polish month, basically. So we are in 1820s, 1830s Poland. If you've listened to the episode about the diary of a Polish girl, it was set a little later than that, but it was a similar period. It was basically when Poland was under partitions. So not great. Today we are focusing on Fryderyk Chopin, as we say in Polish, or Fryderyk Chopin, whatever. But he was basically Polish. If you've heard people refer to him as French, this is also kind of true because he had a French father and he lived in France for quite some time. But he was also Polish, and Poland was undeniably in his mind, at the heart of the music pieces that he was creating. I mean, if you even look at the names of the pieces, the style of the pieces, a lot of them are sort of under Polish influence, and they're supposed to express his homesickness or just sadness regarding the fate of his motherland, because as he was abroad, Poland was going through a rough time, and even when he was still in Poland. So it's funny because here in Poland, he is sort of like our serious national hero. You know, he is expressing his love for the country through music. Some of his music, like mazurkas or polonaises, are, inspired by actual folk styles, actual Polish dances. However, when you start reading anything that he has written that was not music, that dude was just so unserious. The thing he writes, especially to people, not just in his diaries, but the letters, I think they reveal that he was very humorous, maybe a little self-obsessed, but also very sassy and cocky. You have probably heard about Chopin's companion for many years, George Sand, who was one of his many loves, supposedly, but Chopin was reportedly in love many times, and there is some speculation that it wasn't always women, or that his relationships with women were of a different kind than his relationships with men. It's all very, very veiled and very unexplored, and it doesn't help that Polish academia and Polish scholars for many years were very homophobic, so they didn't want to know what was actually up. And all of the source materials are in Polish. So who, if not Polish scholars, should be the ones exploring that? But it's also very difficult to differentiate between what was the expression of actual love and what was just an expression of what was considered friendly banter at the time, because there was a lot of platonic intimacy in that period that was considered completely normal between two men. Two men could hold hands and everyone would be like, wow, they're such good friends. And also, because it was the Romantic era, everyone's feelings just seemed to have been additionally enhanced. Everyone just felt things 5 times more than usual, or at least described them that way. And a lot of the writings from the era are just really over the top. So sometimes it's did they describe big feelings or did they describe small feelings in a big way? It's sometimes difficult to tell. Chopin's sexuality, though, was always under scrutiny. There was always some speculation. And because he was such an iconic, nationalist character and a big name in Polish history, we basically have to unveil decades of historians trying to sweep things under the carpet and trying to sort of pull his personality their way. So there is a lot of talk about how he was supposedly in love with Konstancja Gładkowska or Maria Wodzińska, but there is actually no proof of that. Even the National Fryderyk Chopin Institute in Warsaw said that they actually don't have any viable proof of any of these supposed crushes or loves. In 1940s, letters were found that were supposedly written to Chopin by Delfina Potocka, and they were pretty graphic. And people were saying, oh, if the letters are authentic, if she was actually writing this to him, then that would finally prove that he wasn't as gay as they say. We actually could say, no, because we have these letters, so she was his lover. Obviously, back when they came out, bisexualism or pansexualism wasn't even in the discourse, so they were like, okay, that's proof that he's not gay. But the letters were eventually confirmed fake, and the woman was actually tried for forgery. And the actual letters that he wrote or he received that could probably be a little spicy. The letters that he received from his male friends have mysteriously disappeared, which I find very interesting. So today we're reading Chopin's gayest sounding letters, basically. Most of them are to Titus Wojciechowski, who was, if you look at Polish Wikipedia, it's like he was his friend. But if you go to the English Wikipedia, it's like, yeah, we actually don't know. So listen to this and tell me what you think he was to Chopin. And also, the letters that Chopin received from Wojciechowski disappeared, all of them. And he sometimes refers to some of the letters. He's like, oh, you asked me to send you a kiss. But the actual letter asking for the kiss somehow is just not there. All of these letters are between 1824 and 1830. And usually the structure of the letter is that there is some sort of a personal beginning when he refers to the person that he addresses the letters to. Then in the middle of the letter, he describes in detail a lot of musical events and concerts that he's going to and places that he's been and people that he's met. We are going to skip these parts. I'm going to be real with you. It's a little boring unless you're familiar with all the names, all the places and all the people, unless you care about classical music. This is just not that fun. We are going to read one of the letters where he describes it in more detail, which I found interesting. So you won't miss out completely, but we are still going to go for mostly the beginning and the end of the letter, because at the end of the letter, he also goes back to being personal. The first letter that we're reading is to Wilhelm Kolberg. So he's not the OG Titus Wojciechowski that we still don't know if it was just a friend or a lover. It's someone else. Even though all of the other letters are going to be to Titus Wojciechowski, I'm including this one because I just want you to be familiar with the style, the way he writes, because it's not what you would expect from a person of this caliber. To Wilhelm Kolberg, Szafarnia, 19th of August, 1824. Dear Wiluś, so a minuscule version of the name. Thanks for remembering me, but on the other hand, I am annoyed with you that you are such a mean and horrid etc. and only write such a scrap to me. Were you short of paper or pens, or did you grudge the ink? Perhaps you had no time to do more than put in a scroll. Ay, that's it. You go horseback riding, enjoying yourself and forget about me. Well, give me a kiss and I'll forgive you. Hello? I'm glad you're well and jolly because that's what is wanted in the country. I'm so glad I can write to you. I also am enjoying myself, and you're not the only one that writes, for I can stick on too. Don't ask how well, but I can, enough for the horse to go slowly wherever he prefers, while I sit fearfully on its back, like a monkey on a bear. Till now I haven't had any falls, because the horse hasn't thrown me off. But if he ever should want me to tumble off, I may do it someday. I won't bother you with my affairs because I know they won't interest you. Your sincere friend, Fryderyk Chopin. For reference, Chopin was 14 at the time of this letter, so I think it kind of shows. However, there are letters from when he's 18, 19, 20, when he is writing to Titus, and he sounds basically the same. Have a look at that. To Titus Wojciechowski in Poturzyce. Poturzyce is Titus Wojciechowski's house, home, basically, his land, his place, whatever you call it. Warsaw, 27th of December, 1828. Dearest Titus, I have put off writing till the moment when the sense of friendship conquered the habit of laziness. As I want this letter to be in your house for the 1st and 4th of January, I take up my pen, sleepy as I am. I won't fill up this paper with a lot of compliments, affected good wishes and the usual silly phrases, because I know you and you know me. There you have the reason of my silence. Kostuś told me that you have written to him. Don't think I'm cross because you haven't written to me. I know your soul, so it doesn't matter about paper. If I have written such a lot of nonsense to you, it's only to remind you that you are as much in my heart as ever, and that I'm the same Fritz as before. Fritz is again like a minuscule version of Fryderyk. Then there is his signature, and then he also writes, you don't like to be kissed, but let me do it today. Best wishes for your mama's health from the whole household. Embrace your brother for me. Okay, you can say that the kiss could be platonic because he also says to embrace your brother. So like people back then, men back then embraced each other and it wasn't a big deal. They gave each other kisses. But to remind you that you are as much in my heart as ever and that I'm the same Fritz as before, when you are separated from someone you care for, it's pretty these are pretty warm words, I would say. And he's 18 at the time. The next one is from him around the age of 19, if I'm good at math. Warsaw, 3rd of October 1829. Dear Titus, I have this moment received a letter from you just as I was starting to write to you again, thinking either that my first letter had not reached you or that I must have written something frightfully stupid. I am glad that you are well, as I conclude from your letter. I shall learn more about that from Karol. I find it interesting that he is panicking that he wrote something stupid and that is why Titus is not writing back, because why would you care that much if he was just a friend? But maybe I'm speculating here, we actually don't know that. I am sure you will see that I must go back to Vienna. But it is not for Panna Blachetka, of whom I think I wrote to you. Panna is a Polish word for miss, so every time he's referring to a panna, it's basically some unmarried woman, so usually very young. And here it seems like it's a reference to like his supposed crush. But then he says, she is young, pretty, and a pianist, but I, perhaps unfortunately, already have my own ideal, which I have served faithfully, though silently, for half a year, of which I dream, to thoughts of which the adagio of my concerto belongs, and which this morning inspired the little waltz I am sending you. Attention to one point here, no one knows about this but you. So historians argue that this is about his crush on Konstancja Gładkowska. It's like pure speculation. We actually don't know who that is. He also does not refer to, it doesn't say like she, it doesn't say her. It says like my ideal. So he leaves us completely in the dark. One theory is that he is like, no one knows about this but you, because Titus knows exactly who the ideal is and that it could be him. But again, we don't know. It's speculation. Because in the same letter, he also writes, you wouldn't believe how dreary I find Warsaw now. If it weren't for the family making it a little more cheerful, I shouldn't say. We never said goodbye. Your last words were, then I'll send you my bag. Imagine, my hold-all was lost on the way back from Panna Bronikowska's wedding. That's enough, I may bore you with these banalities, and I would hate to do anything you dislike. If you can, write me 2 words, and you'll make me happy for several weeks. Forgive me for sending you the waltz. Perhaps it will make you angry with me. But really, I did it to give you pleasure, for I do love you desperately. So he's referring to the waltz that he sent you that historians think was for Konstancja. Now, why would he be angry with that waltz? He did it to give him pleasure because he loves him desperately. So my theory is it either was for Konstancja and he was worried that Titus would be jealous, or it was for Titus and he would be angry because he's like, come on, like we need to be more discreet. Warsaw, 20th of October, 1829. Many thanks for the note written by your brother. I was pleased to have it. You are fortunate that when you wish it, you can make people happy and gay. Okay, no. Let's go back to the 19th century. That word did not have those connotations yet. And also it's in Polish, so it was a different word. You don't know how cross I was in the morning and how sweet-tempered after dinner when the letter had come. I must stop now, as I have several things to see to before the journey. I embrace you heartily. People usually end their letters that way without thinking what they write. But believe me that I do mean what I write, because I love you. Does that sound straight to you that he's like, I embrace you heartily, and I know that men usually embrace themselves heartily when they say goodbyes, but I actually mean it because I love you. Warsaw, 14th of November, 1829. Dearest Titus, I received your last letter in which you sent me a kiss at Antonin at the Radziwiłł's. I was there a week. You can't think how I enjoyed it. I came back by the last post, and even then I was scarcely allowed to leave. So far as my temporarily personal pleasure went, I would have stopped there till they turned me out. But my affairs, and particularly my unfinished concerto, which I was waiting impatiently for the completion of its finale, spurred me on to abandon that paradise. I don't think I shall leave here till December. Papa's name day is the 6th, so probably I shall go towards the end of the month. Therefore I hope to see you first, and I am making no plans. If I should go before you come, which probably will not be the case, I would write to you. There is nothing I more desire than to see you, especially abroad. You can't think how much I feel that something is missing in Warsaw now. I have no one I can speak 2 words to, no one to turn to with confidence. I find it really telling that he needs a person to speak to that knows something that other people don't know. He says that he has no one to turn to with confidence, which could obviously just mean that he has no close friends, but also why would he need that special space? And it could be about his female crushes, but still, he turns to Titus to discuss those crushes. You want my portrait. If I could steal one from Princess Eliza, I would send it to you. She has drawn me twice in her album, and I am told has got a good likeness. My life, you are too kind, and believe me, I am nearly always with you. I will never desert you. I shall be, till death, your most affectionate Fryderyk Chopin. Again, was he just being dramatic? Is that just like the romantic era goodbye? Or is that something else? And he wants his portrait as well, which is again another way of showing someone affection. Warsaw, Saturday, 27th March, 1830. At this point, Fryderyk Chopin is 20 years of age. My dearest life, I have never missed you as I do now. I have no one to pour things out to. I have not you. One look from you after each concert would be more to me than all the praises of the journalists. Ahem. That sounds like he just wanted his friend to be at the concerts, right? I have no one to pour things out to. Again, this is like pure speculation, but could it not be that he could not talk to anyone about his affections because it was not socially acceptable? Probably if he spoke to other people about his like female crushes, it would be completely acceptable. But this part of himself that he always had to hide, it was only reserved for Titus or other men. Again, pure speculation. It might not be true, but we'll never know. Directly after receiving your letter, I wanted to give you an account of my first concert. But I was so distracted and so busy with preparations for the second one, which I gave on Monday, that when I sat down, I could not collect my thoughts. I am still in the same condition today, but as the post is going, I will not wait for a moment of mental quiet. So rare a moment with me. Then he gives a description of his concert, which I decided to include because it's interesting how he pays attention to people's reactions to it. You would think that when someone is actually a genius, as Chopin was, they know that. They are not doubtful of their abilities, they are not self-conscious, and this proves otherwise because not only is he analyzing people's reactions to him playing, but he is also then reading the reviews obsessively and analyzing what he could improve. This is what he says. About the first concert, the hall was full and both boxes and stalls were sold out 3 days beforehand. But it did not produce on the mass of the audience the impression I expected. The first allegro is accessible only to the few. There were some bravas, but I think only because they were puzzled. What is this? And had to pose as connoisseurs. The adagio and rondo had more effect. One heard some spontaneous shouts, but as for the potpourri on Polish themes, in my opinion, it failed to come off. They applauded in the spirit of, let him go away knowing we were not bored. Kurpiński found new beauties in my concerto that evening, but Wieman still admitted that he can't see what people find in my Allegro. These are all the names of, I'm assuming, the people that have reviewed his work. Ernemann was quite satisfied. Eisner complained that my Pantaleon was dull and that he couldn't hear the bass passages. That evening, the gods and the people sitting in the orchestra were quite content. On the other hand, the pit complained that I played too softly. They would have preferred to be at Kopciuszek's to hear the discussions, which apparently centered around my person. Therefore, Mochnacki, praising me to the skies in the Polish Courier is a newspaper, I'm assuming, from the time, especially for the Adagio, ended by cancelling more energy. Sennewald, Brzezina's accompanist, asked me for my portrait, but I could not allow that, as it would be too much at once, and I don't want anyone to wrap up butter in me, as happened with Lelevel's portrait. I will send it to you as soon as possible. If you want it, you shall have it, but no one else except you shall have my portrait. There is only one other person to whom I would give it, and even then to you first, for you are my dearest. Who is he referring to when he says that there is only one person to whom he would give it, and even then he would give it to Titus first? If he did have a crush, if he was indeed in love with Constantia at the time, why would he not put her above anything else? Why would he still give it to Titus? And then he says, no one but myself has read your letter, which I find very telling and very mysterious, because why would he give a disclaimer like this if there wasn't something in the letter that was not meant for anyone else to see? As always, I carry your letters about with me. What joy it will be in May, when I get outside the walls of the town, to think of my approaching journey and get out your letter and really convince myself that you care for me, or at least to look at the handwriting and signature of the person I love so much. I don't want to stop writing, all the more because I believe I have not put down what I wanted to amuse you. I kept everything back for the dessert, and now there is no other dessert than a hearty embrace, for I have no one but you. Fryderyk Chopin. Get out your letter and really convince myself that you care for me? Why would he need to convince himself that his friend cares for him? If it was just a friendship, like, be for real right now. If it was just friends, do you always doubt your friends, and do you always look for signs that they care for you? If it's a friendship, it's usually a given. It's looking for signs that they don't care for you. It's usually like, oh, I didn't like that they did that, maybe we shouldn't be friends. It's usually not that deep. Warsaw, 17th of April, 1830. Father's name day. My dearest life. What a relief. I mean, it's still to Titus, obviously, when he says my dearest life. What a relief in my intolerable boredom when I get a letter from you. Just today I needed it. I was more bored than ever. I wish I could throw off the thoughts that poison my happiness, and yet I love to indulge in them. Don't know myself what is wrong with me. Perhaps I shall be more tranquil after this letter. You know how I love writing to you. You say that perhaps you are going to come. That rejoiced me, for I too shall stay over for the same. Same is the Polish parliament, which at the time was under Russian rule, Russian influence, but still, I'm assuming the aristocrats, the well-born, were participating in it. Do you know, I was preparing to go to you last week, but it came to nothing, partly because I have urgent work. I've got to write like fury. If you come to Warsaw while the same is sitting, you will certainly be here for my concert. I have a sort of presentiment. I shall believe in it implicitly, however it turns out, for I often dream of you. Hello? Why would you dream of your friends? Often? How often I take night for day and day for night. How often I live in my dreams and sleep in the daytime. Worse than sleep, because I feel just the same. And instead of recuperating during that state of numbness, as one does in sleep, I get weaker and more tired than ever. Love me please, Fryderyk Chopin. Love me please, that's desperate. But also mood, I mean, worse than sleep because I feel just the same. That guy was not getting a moment's rest. So he's got a feeling that he is going to see Titus for his concert because he keeps dreaming of him, which is not suspicious at all. Not suspicious at all. I dream of my friends every day. Every day, because I think of my friends a lot, right? Do you not? Warsaw, Saturday, 21st of August, 1830. This one I love because it's so bold. It's clearly supposed to be humorous. I mean, the guy is still only 20 years old, but it's heavy. Disgusting hypocrite. That's how he starts. This is the second letter I am writing you. You won't believe that. You'll say, oh, Fritz is lying. But this time is the truth. After returning here happily with the Baron, I wrote to you at once. But as my parents were at Żelazowa Wola, it was very natural that I did not stay long in Warsaw, but left a letter to you which was to be posted. When I came back with my parents on Tuesday, I found the letter in the place where I had left it by the teacups. Karol, who came to the house during my absence, told me he saw it lying on the cups. It's an ill wind that blows nobody good. Perhaps in this letter I shan't abuse you as much as I did in the first one, when your Potuzhin affairs were fresh in my memory. I sincerely assure you that I love to think of all that. I feel a sort of homesickness for your fields. I can't forget that birch tree under the windows. That crossbow. It's so romantic. I remember how you wore me out over that crossbow for my sins. But I must account to you for my time. I must tell you definitely when I am leaving, and I must write you various important matters. What just happened? So he wrote Titus a letter. He left it by the teacups at his home for it to be posted. They did not post it. He came back to his house, to his family home at Żelazowa Wola, and he still found the letter. He was like, oh shit. It hasn't been posted. So he wrote another letter in which he refers to Potuzhin affairs, which I'm assuming refers to Chopin's visit to Potuzhin, because he's like, I sincerely assure you that I love to think of all that. I feel a sort of homesickness for your field, so he must have been at Potuzhin. But what the hell went on with the crossbow? And then he's like, oh, it's so romantic. That was so much fun. We should do it again sometime. This one is definitely suspicious. If you did not believe the theory of Chopin actually having a thing for Titus, or of this not necessarily being a platonic relationship, I think this letter is the one where it's like, how do you explain this? Like, be for real. I must hurry to take this letter to the post, or the poor thing will be left at home like its brother. Next week, I shan't be able to refrain from abusing you for the thing I ought to have written about today, and that will be enough. I don't want anything from you, not even a handshake. I'm disgusted with you forever. You're a hellish monster. I embrace you. What is going on? But this is so flirtatious, though. Is it just me, or is this flirtatious? What is he referring to? We'll never know, because he was supposed to write about it in this letter, but he gave up because he didn't have any time. Like, he was running out of time. And then at the end of the letter, he says, forgive me the way I write. I'm stupider than ever today. Warsaw, Tuesday, 31st of August, 1830. Dearest Titus, I did need your letter. I got rid of my cold when it came. If only my 2 letters might have the blessed result of curing you of falseness and hypocrisy when you read them, how happy I should be. But I am sure this letter will do nothing of the sort. Indeed, it will probably lead to worse things. It will rouse anger in your lion heart. And it's lucky that I'm 40 miles away, otherwise the whole weight of your wrath would instantly fall on me. We have no idea what they're referring to here. My guilt is great, but dear to the heart of the guilty one. I am still in Warsaw, and as I love you, nothing tempts me to go abroad. Yesterday I had a long time with Wincenty Skarżyński. He asked a lot about you. He's fond of you. Everyone talks to me of Oleś, and no one of somebody. I am glad that the secret is buried in my heart, and that what begins with you ends with me. And you can be glad that in me you have an abyss into which you can safely fling everything, as if into a second self, for your own soul has long lain at the bottom of it. I keep your letters as if they were ribbons from a beloved one. I have the ribbon. Write to me, and in a week I will enjoy myself chattering to you again. Yours for always, Fryderyk Chopin. Okay, was there a need to all that? Was there a need to all that? Was that not enough to just write, "Oh, I miss you so much, my dear friend"? No, he wrote, "I am glad that the secret, whatever secret he is referring to, is buried in my heart, and that what begins with you ends with me." Does that sound friendly to you? And you can be glad that in me you have an abyss into which you can safely fling everything, as into a second self. For your own soul has long lain at the bottom of it. Be for real. I cannot believe that Polish scholars read this and they were like, yep, that sounds friendly to me. Warsaw, Saturday, probably 4th of September, 1830. Dearest Titia, I tell you, hypocrite, that I am more crazy than usual. I am still here. I have not the strength to decide on my date. I think I shall go away to forget my home forever. I think I shall go away to die. And how dismal it must be to die anywhere else except where one has lived. How horrible it will be to see beside my deathbed some cold-blooded doctor or servant instead of my own family. Believe me, I am sometimes ready to go to Hotkiewicz's to find tranquility with you. Then, when I leave the house, I walk the streets, get melancholy, and come home again. What for? Just to mope. I have not rehearsed the concerto yet. Somehow or other, I must leave all my treasures before Michaelmas and get to Vienna, condemned to perpetual sighing. What stuff! You, who know so much of human powers, explain to me why man supposes that today is only going to be tomorrow. Don't be silly is the only answer that I can give to myself. If you know another one, send it to me. He's going through it. He's not in a good mood. Let us go to Italy, dear. From today you will get no letter from me for a month, neither from Warsaw nor perhaps from elsewhere, so till we meet you will have no news of me. Stuff and nonsense is all I can manage, but to get away, and you too. You'll keep me waiting for you. I shall receive letters. Oh, I must just finish the mill and start the distillery and see to the wool and the lambs, and then it will be next sowing time, and it will be neither mill nor distillery nor wool that will keep you, but something else. A man can't always be happy. Perhaps joy comes for only a few moments in life. So why tear oneself away from illusions that can't last long anyhow? What is he saying? He's saying like, oh, Titus can't meet me because he keeps making up all these excuses. But what is he also saying when he says, perhaps joy comes for only a few moments in life, so why tear oneself away from illusions that can't last long anyhow? Just as on the one hand, I regard the tie of comradeship as the holiest of things, so on the other hand, I maintain that it is an infernal invention, and that it would be better if human beings knew neither money, nor porridge, nor boots, nor hats, nor beefsteaks, nor pancakes, etc., better than as it is. To my mind, the saddest part of it is that you two think the same way, and would prefer to know nothing of them. I am going to wash now. Don't kiss me. I'm not washed yet. You? If I were smeared with the oils of Byzantium, you would not kiss me unless I forced you to it by magnetism. There is some kind of power in nature. Today you will dream of kissing me. I have got to pay you out for the horrible dream you gave me last night. Fryderyk Chopin, forever a lover of the personification of hypocrisy. Need I remind you that he referred to Titus as hypocrite several times throughout the letters? This letter, it sounds like he's been a little rejected perhaps, or he's not being treated seriously by Titus, so he's like, if you don't want to see me, just don't see me. I will never be good enough for you. Literally, I do everything I can and you always find excuses. But at the end of the day, I still love you. Or it's just a letter to friend. We'll never know. Who knows? Warsaw, 18th of September, 1830. My dearest life, beastly hypocrite, disgusting, loathsome Count Ori, Abelard, etc. I don't know why, but I feel happy, and father and mother are pleased about it. Then he gives like a long update about his musical career, and then he says, when we have rehearsed it, I shall go. But where when I don't want to go anywhere? All the same, I don't mean to stay in Warsaw, and if you suspect any love affair, as many persons in Warsaw do, drop it. And believe that, where my ego is concerned, I can rise above all that. And if I were in love, I would manage to conceal the impotent and miserable passion for another few years. So he is saying that he's very private with his affairs. Everyone is speculating about who he likes, who he doesn't like, but he keeps it very private. I think that's the issue with trying to figure out who he was actually in love with, because he is very discreet about it, which is like good for him. But he says that he would manage to conceal an unrequited love for a couple of years. Think what you like. Anyhow, a letter brought by the Count, whom I met 2 days ago in the cellar, will explain things better. I don't want to travel with you. I'm not making it up. Indeed, as I love you, it would spoil that moment, worth 1,000 monotonous days, when we embrace each other abroad for the first time. So his reasoning is we can't travel to the same place because we're supposed to meet at that place, and being reunited in a new place abroad would be more romantic than traveling there together. That's what he's saying, basically. I could not now await you, receive you, talk to you, as I could do then, when joy will shut out all cold conventional phrases and let one heart talk to the other in some divine tongue. Divine tongue, what an unfortunate expression. Like divine navel or liver, horridly material. But to come back to the moment when I meet you there, then perhaps I could let myself go. Could tell you what I always dream of, what is everywhere before my eyes, what I constantly hear, what causes me more joy and more sorrow than all else on earth. But don't think that I'm in love, not I. I have put off that till later. If only my health lasts, I hope to work all my life. Some foreshadowing here, your health did not last, sadly. This is one of the things that I hate when I read historical texts, is just like how much better the quality of life of that person would be if they had access to modern medicine. Sometimes I wonder whether I really am lazy, whether I ought to work more when my physical strength allows it. Joking apart, I have convinced myself that I really am not such a hopeless vagabond, and that when necessity compels me, I can do twice as much work as I do now. You will admit that I can't arraign myself better before you than by acquitting myself. It's no use. I know that I love you and want you to love me always more and more. And that's why I scribble all of this. Often trying to make oneself out better only makes one out worse. But I think that with you, I don't need to appear either better or worse. The sympathy that I feel towards you forces your heart in some supernatural way to feel the same sympathy. You are not the master of your thoughts, but I am, and I won't be thrown over, any more than trees will give up the foliage that brings them life and joy and character. Even in winter it shall be green in my heart. My head is green, but heaven knows there is warmth in my heart, so don't be astonished at such vegetation. Enough, just give me a kiss. Forever yours. I've only just realized what a lot of nonsense I have scribbled to you. Clearly my imagination dates from yesterday. I've had no sleep, so forgive my fatigue. I danced the mazurka. This is the last letter that we'll be reading today. There is many more letters because in 1830 they traveled together to Austria, and then suddenly the November uprising erupted in Poland, and Wojciechowski was like, no, I need to go back to Poland right now and I need to fight. So he did, and he got pretty high up in the military. He got a lot of honors, he proved himself to be a good soldier, and they actually never met again. However, they continued to correspond. So Chopin sent him his last letter literally a month before he died, and he was hoping that it's possible that Titus visits. While I don't think that they had a relationship this whole entire time, I think it must have like fizzled out. There's clearly some issues that Chopin had with how Titus treated him. And this last letter that we've just read, it seems to be referring to maybe being involved with someone else. He keeps saying that he's not in love, but then he keeps referring to feeling green in his heart, comparing himself to a foliage of a tree. It's probably a lot more complicated than we'd like it to be. A lot of these relationships back then, they sort of fizzled out, they changed, they evolved. They were balancing on this like thin line of friendship and a romantic relationship, which I think shows in these letters, if we are to believe that he was indeed involved with Titus, which I think all of these pretty much prove, but of course it's all speculation, then it was probably one of those relationships, one of those changing, fizzling out and then growing things. And it could have been a situationship even, for all that we know. Definitely something happened in Potuzhin under the birch tree or with the crossbow, whatever the hell that was. I just find it interesting. Titus Wojciechowski later married and had 4 kids, I think. But of course, it does not negate anything that could have happened between him and Chopin. First of all, because of societal expectations and norms. Second of all, because bi and pan people exist. So it's not impossible that he could have still had feelings for Chopin, even though he later married. I just think it needs more digging into. It definitely needs more analysis. It needs more insight. There needs to be more PhDs written about this, and more Polish people need to get interested in it, because while this translation was done by a Polish person, I think it's a translation from the 30s. So I was also at first like, what if they censored out some bits? But then I checked with the Polish letters and it's actually the same thing. It's not a bad translation, but there's a lot of things that are just a little different. And sometimes it sounds more romantic in English, not gonna lie. For example, when he says to give him a kiss, he uses a word that we would use as children. So like if you would kiss a child, this is the word that you would use. So a lot of these sound much more serious in English, or loving someone, but then in Polish is this word that you would also use for friends. But then in English, I guess also you would also tell your friends you love them. So it's all very much about the language. So I feel like people that are actually studying the language should be the ones picking this apart. But I still think it's very interesting because it is a historical proof that all those relations were not black and white. There is a lot more depth in them. And regardless of how we interpret this, it still tells us a lot about 2 men being friends, even if they were not lovers. I think it still shows a completely different dynamic than what we are used to. And I personally think that's interesting enough, even if we take all the queer background out of the picture. So let me know what you think. I am definitely convinced that something was up. Something was cooking. This is not your regular way of writing letters. You can say that he was young. You can say that it was his friend, so he was just like messing around. But there's definitely a lot of very like affirmative language, I would say, that I don't think is needed in a friendship. And maybe it was needed in a friendship back then, but I just think it's a little telling. It's a little telling. So regardless of what you think, yeah, I do think we definitely need to dig deeper. You could say that it's his private affairs. We should not be snooping around. But there's this thing about like history that we sometimes deserve to know. And while we absolutely can separate someone's art from their personal lives, it does change the perspective a little when you can like relate more to the person that wrote those. Like, let's say he was gay, he was bi, or he was pansexual. There's a lot of creators nowadays that would be like, wow, that's a person to look up to now because they went through what I'm going through, and maybe it shows in their art also. Yeah, so this is it. Maybe this is actually a better episode for June than it is for November, but we are staying Polish themed this month, so let's just stick to it. And also Chopin, for some reason, to me, he always sounds like November. I don't listen to his music in November, but I feel like I could. It definitely sounds like November to me. And also I think that one time I went to his museum in Warsaw, it was in November, so maybe that's why I associate it like this. But there's a lot of sounds in his music that just make me think of naked trees and nature dying. So maybe that's why. I'm actually not sure what it is about his music, his art. Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and I'll hear you in another episode. Bye!